On any given day, when I walk into my home studio ready to paint a canvas or do a 2-page journaling spread, I always approach the blank canvas or those blank pages filled with something. It's never just nothing. Sometimes I'm filled actually with my own anxiety. Sometimes I'm filled with my own hopeless feelings, even. I'm willing to confess to that. Sometimes I'm overflowing with a very specific original idea or an inspiration. I know exactly which direction I want to take the piece I'm working on. But many times, I think even most times, I am full of whatever I've read in Scripture that day or whatever God is presently speaking. No matter what I come with, I always begin with words. Even if those words never make it onto the finished art, even if they get covered up or peeled right back off, you know what? It just doesn't matter to me. Those few words or that one sentence, that idea, it informs everything for me, both consciously and unconsciously. Consciously, the words or ideas sort of tell me what my subject matter will be, whether that be a woman's face or, gosh, let's say a vase of flowers or even shapes in the abstract. I think subconsciously, the words affect the color palette I choose and also the paint style, whether that be graphic or expressionist, whether things are busy or serene on the page, whether it's bright or subdued. I truly believe there are reasons for every decision an artist makes. And I often find myself kind of excavating as I go along, adding layers and taking away layers and covering up layers as I get to the bottom, as I kind of distill what it is my heart is saying, or even what God is saying to my heart. In my expressionist style of painting, there is never a wasted layer, and I love that. There's rarely ever a need to even erase. For me, the process is the solution in art as well as life, and I'm usually okay with what comes out. I'm usually okay with even leaving some marks behind, leaving evidence of my process between one layer and the next. I'm often okay with sitting with a piece. I might listen for days or even weeks before going back into a piece to finish it. I rarely worry with technique beyond a few basic rules, mostly rules involving the working knowledge that I've developed over years of which layers or maybe which materials need sealing before moving on to the next thing. I need this process. See, I need it to be as wild and free as I can allow it to be, because I have been worn out by my own need for perfection in years past. I've been pretty exhausted by the carefulness that perfectionist tendency put on me for so many years. And art is one way I rebel against silly rules while keeping the beautiful ones. And you know what? I think that is just like life. This Christmas 2015, the Lord's been pressing into my heart certain truths. And these are truths concerning how mindful the Lord has truly been of me. Psalms says, "What is man that thou art mindful of him?" And I've been thinking and thinking and thinking about that. The Lord hasn't been mindful of me in the way I try to be mindful of people that I love. He's mindful of me as only He can be. The Lord is mindful of me in a way that only heaven can be mindful. He is mindful of me supremely, completely, with fierce, fierce love, with tender mercy. And what's crazy is He's mindful of me with zero effort on His part. And I contrast this with my own lack of mindfulness, just as an exercise, as a way for me to kind of get my head around the mindfulness of the Lord. I contrast His mindfulness with my own lack of it, the way I tend maybe sometimes to get overwhelmed in crowds, the way I look past people. You guys, sometimes I look past people on purpose, but it's because I feel so inadequate to care for them enough. I feel so inadequate to the need of the moment. I contrast the Lord's mindfulness with mine in this area of touch. I think about how I will hold one of my own grandchildren. And you know what? I would die for any one of those babies. Yet I find myself, I can hold them, and my mind is someplace else. And you know what? That's okay. All is grace, and I'm human after all. I'm finite, to be sure. But you know what? God, when He holds your heart, it is always with care-filled attention. His touch is mindful of what you need. His touch goes directly to where you most need it, to where you most need to feel it in the way that you most need it. Every glance your direction is mindful of you, and it's infused with the Lord's delight. He will never look past you. And you know what? His words to you are mindful. The Lord never wastes a single word. He speaks always to the root of what it is you most need to hear. And this Christmas 2015, I must have most needed to hear the simple fact of how very mindful the Lord is of me. The Lord's plans for you and I are mindful. His gifts to us are mindful. You will never get a thoughtless gift from God. I've often wrestled over the fact that, you guys, gift giving is not my gift, if that makes sense. I have people in my life that are truly gifted to give. When they give something, it's always the perfect thing. It's always so completely thoughtful, and the recipient always feels so cared for by the gift. As much as I'm jealous for that gift, I covet that gift, I feel like I don't have it. But the Lord's gifts are always mindful of us in the way that He uniquely created and gifted us to be. We can let ourselves off the hook. You know why? No one on earth, no human being can be that attentive and that mindful of us. All the way down to knowing the numbers of hairs on our head. But God is that mindful. He always will be. He's all powerful. He lives in this ever-present, full, complete awareness of you and I and our moments and our days and our seasons. When I look back over the year 2015, excuse me, I can see so many instances where the Lord's gifts were so mindful of me that in fact one gift led to the next gift. And the next gift led to the next gift, all at the same time building on the one before. So that this slow miracle unfolded in my heart, and I found myself healed. I mean, emotionally healed in places that I didn't think could be healed. Predicted back, say, Christmas 2014. Isaiah 63:9 says, "In all my distress, he was distressed, and the angel of his presence stepped in to save, to rescue, to deliver." Wings are a strong theme in a lot of my designs, and today they appeared again. I didn't plan on wings, but the words that were needing to be expressed were connected to this concept of the angel of God's presence, and so there came the wings. Now, that may not be theologically exact, theologically precise, but I ask for your grace because I tend to save the hermeneutics for my teaching gift, and I am a very careful Bible teacher. I have decent expositional skills, but I set hermeneutics aside when I step into my art studio. In the studio, for me, it's all about the imagery, prophetic imagery that the words can evoke in my spirit. And I do think it's prophetic imagery. It's something very special to me. It's a way that I can kind of bypass that left brain, logical, linear thinking, and I can connect with my heart. I can connect creatively to the things that God's speaking to me. So, these are the things I have been thinking about for weeks, really since the Christmas season got started. These are the concepts that have been pushing me into this state of creative grace. And I have to tell you, these truths absolutely have affected my life so much this Christmas season that art is the inevitable result. And that's kind of the way that I like to live my life in such a way that art is the inevitable result. And I need that. I need to be able to sort of alchemy my thoughts and words into art, bringing ideas that have been in my left brain linear thinking, oftentimes dwelling in a place of unbelief, to be honest with you. And I love how art brings them from my head to my heart, down through my fingers, through my paintbrush, out onto the canvas or the journal spread, and truly into my life in some mysterious way that I cannot explain. I seem to come away with a better understanding every time, and a better way to know how to live my life day to day when I'm away from the studio. And isn't that what we all need?